information session hosted by the Center for Transportation Equity, Decisions, and Dollars. I'm Dr. James Wood, the program manager here at CTEDD. I'm joined by members of our leadership team, and we're here to host a webinar to discuss our latest RFP and to answer any questions you might have about this process, the sort of things we're looking for in potential research projects, and ways we can help our participants. So we'll begin in just a moment. Okay. So to start with the general overview of our purpose, so these RFPs for what we call the general round are usually issued once a year. This year we'll be issuing our second one of the year, but it's usually once a year. Projects are generally 12 months in length. They're led by full-time faculty, research faculty, and occasionally postdocs, all of whom are eligible to apply for projects. Of course, projects can have as many co-PIs as they'd like. The lead PI, though, is encouraged to be a full-time tenured or tenure-track faculty member, and the lead PI must be from one of our 5 consortium member schools: University of Texas at Arlington, University of South Florida, University of Wisconsin at Madison, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and Georgia Tech. So proposals that we issue, that are issued to us, have to fit the general grant objective and our many focus areas outlined in the RFP. I'll have a slide on those in just a moment. Because we're a transportation research center, the projects must of course focus on transportation, and it's very important that they have the potential to convert transportation research into practice-ready knowledge, inform researchers and non-academics, help to shape national and global conversations on research, and respond to the needs of practitioners, policymakers, nonprofits involved in transportation. Those focus areas I mentioned previously, we have 6 of them. I'll just go over them very briefly. The first is creative use of existing infrastructure. The second is innovative funding strategies, ways to pay for that interesting existing and new infrastructure. Focus area 3 is transportation systems, competitiveness, and equal access. Number 4, employing big data and innovative techniques to improve system efficiency. Number 5, performance management and monitoring systems. And number 6, transportation policy and decision making. Now these are 6 general focus areas. In general, our proposals that we receive cover more than one focus area, and we generally prefer to see that in our proposals for the general round. It's a good way to synergize research and ensure that it touches on policy as well as technology and use within the community. So it's best to find ways that your research can sort of thread between multiple focus areas over this process. The proposal submission package, which we have a copy of it available on our website, and there was also a copy in the invitation email many of you received. We have the formal proposal document. It has a maximum page limit of 20 pages. It's pretty robustly structured, but we hope 20 pages is sufficient for these purposes. The proposed budget, we also have a budget template also available online. We'd like that to be completed and also reviewed by your institution before you submit it, just to make sure that the cells are accurate, that the numbers add up correctly, and to make sure that it's a final budget for the submission. The third item is match commitment letters for both cash and in-kind match. Federal grants such as these require at least a 50% match, and your budget officers can help you with those details, but for every dollar that's proposed as match, we need a documented commitment letter. It's a very important part of the proposal process. And a new item for this year that those of you joining us from previous cycles will see is a stakeholder commitment letter or letters that would confirm and detail your stakeholders' connection to your project. The proposal document asks you to list potential stakeholders and partners with your project, but going forward, we'd like you to engage the stakeholder at this process, at the proposal writing process, and get a sort of a more formal written commitment of the agreement you have, whether it's if they're providing match funding or data or in-kind services, or especially for technology transfer afterward. If there's someone who's going to be implementing the finished product of your research, it's important to have documentation that this partnership is a true and enduring partnership. And we hope that that helps you to grow those relationships between researchers and industry over time. Here's a general overview of the proposal document. I won't read each of these items out loud, but as you can see, each item has a suggested word limit. It's pretty straightforward to stick within those limits. We have a 20-page limit of pages, but it's an itemized proposal document. And if you have any questions about this, of course, we'd be happy to help with the specifics of what goes into each section, but we've tried to make it as intuitive as we can so that you can spend more of your time, preparing your project and getting stakeholders involved, and then the proposal should follow this structure. So now for technology transfer, I'd like to turn things over for a bit to Dr. Eileen Clements of UT Arlington, who is our expert on technology transfer and your advisor in these matters.
Hello, everyone. Today, when it comes to technology transfer, we just wanted to be able to provide a little more guidance along these lines of what we're looking for in your proposals. Technology transfer, the aspect of it was included in the previous cycle of proposals if you were a return to CTEDD, but even for this round, the guidelines are slightly different and updated, so we want to make sure you're aware. For CTEDD technology, we're very focused on making sure that all the research and developments that you are creating in your labs are going to be able to have an impact in society. And so the way that this happens is through technology transfer. The idea being that there's somebody out in the community, whether it be a government office or a company, who wants to be able to take the work that you're developing and bring it into their organization and be able to implement it and use it, with the end goal that there's going to be somebody in society that's benefiting from this development. So that's what we want to have occur. We realize research can be at varying stages, but we want people to be thinking about this for their proposals and be able to include in their proposals to us, how does their technology address technology transfer? How do they plan to identify stakeholders? How do they plan to engage stakeholders? And where do they think their technology is going to be from the start to the end of the project in terms of its technology transfer readiness? So the information you see on your screen, we talk about technology transfer. It's an ongoing process in the life of a project. It begins in the proposal, it continues through implementation and knowledge transfer, and that part is very important when you talk about a stakeholder being able to adopt what you have developed and then be able to implement it in their process. Maybe it's a new policy, but how can they actually take it and implement it, not just see the new policy? We really want to be able to see that it's something that they can take on and use and have impact in the community. So each campus that's part of CTEDD has a tech transfer assistant director. I am the point of contact for UT Arlington, and each of the other member institutions has a tech transfer assistant director, and all of our contact information is available on the CTEDD website. We are here to help you with this process. We're here to help work with you on understanding what technology transfer is and how it can be included in your proposals. So please reach out to us if you do have any questions after this webinar or during the process. For this proposal, we are requesting that you identify at least one relevant stakeholder and have them provide a commitment letter. So we are looking for at least one that you've engaged with at this stage who does discuss how they are interested in what you are trying to develop, not just from a perspective of they have data that they can share, that can help in the developments, but more importantly, are they somebody who does want to adopt what you are trying to develop and implement it? It may not happen at the end of this period, but they are somebody who is interested in that and can help you then with that development through the life of the project. So we would like you to offer a detailed plan in your proposal. So there's a section of the proposal that is asking about your technology transfer plan. For those of you who submitted a proposal in round 3, you may remember there was a tech transfer portion in the proposal. We've changed it slightly for this round 4. We've included more detail that we're asking for. What we're hoping for is that will save people time later, so that those who are awarded can just look back to the T2 plan that they put in their proposal, and it'll be ready to go, and we will not have to do any revisions or updates, or at least that'll be minimal at that time. So the idea here is that there will be no separate T2 plan requested. It will be what's in your proposal and any revisions that are needed in that. We are asking that technologies reach at least a level 3 of technology readiness, and please use the link that's in this webinar, which is going to be available after the fact, to look up the technology readiness level, so you understand where your technology falls in terms of from basic research all the way through applied research and something that is commercializable. It goes from a 1 to a 9. Basic research tends to stay in the 1 to 3. Applied research can be higher from 4 up. We're looking for proposals that are going to have a technology readiness of 6 and above, or sorry, that those proposals that do have a technology readiness of 6 and above, they can propose a longer timeline and divide their proposal into phases. So again, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to myself or your other tech transfer assistant directors, and we will work with you through that process and make sure that you understand what we're looking for. Oh, so this does describe those TRL levels. So like I was saying, but it's also in the link that you have at the bottom of the slide, looking at 1 to 3 as basic research. This is typically what we find, what most faculty are working on at a university: basic research, proof of concept, and then moving more into an applied where you're validating laboratory environment, and you're moving it along. Those technologies that have a stakeholder who's interested in implementing it, those can get up into the more 6, 7, 8 scale level. Those technologies that are commercialized are going to be all the way up there at level 9. So again, these are there for your reference, and please feel free to reach out to us if you do have any questions on that.
And thank you very much, Dr. Clements. So again, adding a little more detail to the idea of project stakeholders. We consider them to be representatives of private industry firms, individuals and agencies from state government, federal government, local. Really depends on the nature of your project. Also, we do a lot with metropolitan planning organizations, transportation planning at the regional level. Transit agencies are a very common partner in our projects. There's also a lot of work with nonprofits and specific foundations, as well as civic organizations in your community. The stakeholders will vary based on the needs of your project, but one of the issues that's new for round 4, which if you see on the right here, in the proposal document, we have the section, it should look familiar if you've applied for these before. We ask you to list the information for stakeholders, I'm sorry. But what's new for round 4 is we'd like a little more documentation on those stakeholders, the letters that Dr. Clements mentioned earlier, to clarify exactly how the stakeholder is involved in the process. How are they contacted, as it says on the right? Documentation that this partnership is enduring and will endure over the life of the project and afterward. So we hope this new edition is informative for you and helps to enrich your projects and enrich their ties to the community that you serve. Next up is the proposed budget range for projects. The numbers have changed slightly from previous cycles. So we're looking for a range. Each project will be between about $65,000 to $200,000, and projects at the higher end of the range, of course, will be for collaborative, larger scale projects. And you can see it's broken down a little bit. Projects with a single PI and maybe at a single institution tend to be at the lower end of the budget scale. Multiple PIs and multiple institutions, more collaboration, tends to move it up into the higher end of the budget range. Another new item for round 4 is that we now require PIs to budget at least 50% of their staff expenses for items related to student researchers. That can be their wages, benefits, their tuition expenses. We'd really like to see projects prioritize this in the budget as well as in the tasks of the research, because a primary goal of the UTC program of university-based research is the growth of student researchers in the next generation. Also, we do get a lot of questions about the travel category on budgets. So we just wanted to clarify that a little bit. If you budget for travel on your project budget, your proposal budget, it needs to be for research-related travel, if any is done. For example, traveling to the field to collect data or conduct in-person interviews. Please do not budget for conference presentations at this point. It's not in keeping with our policies. If you'd like funding for conference presentations after the fact or farther along in your project, CTEDD does have a separate direct process for conference travel, and you can contact us directly and we work it out on a case-by-case basis at that point. But in your proposal budgets, we can allow for a line item specifically for conference travel to present your results. Equipment budgets are also a sticking point on proposal budgets. Anything that budgets for equipment requires a strong justification and also proof that it will be used solely for this CTEDD project. We're a federally funded grant program. Many of those, including ours, are wary of funding durable equipment that will be around after the project is completed. It just adds complications to things. So in general, we discourage budget requests for durable equipment, but if it's essential to the project and the project cannot be performed without it, we require strong justification in writing to show that this has been well thought out, that it cannot be avoided. And then the last part here on this is the 50% match funding that I mentioned previously is the minimum requirement. Higher matching funds are encouraged from your university partners, your community partners, because it indicates more partnership and it indicates that this project has deeper ties to your university, to your community. So please don't think of the 50% as a maximum, it's a minimum. We really like to see projects that have really colorful mixes of funding. The proposal budget, there's a copy of it on the website, and we can also provide additional copies or input on these. It's a standardized template. The cells have been populated with formulas across. You'll see that when you start to fill it in. Your project proposal needs to use this budget template so that we can easily see the categories and then make sure that everything is covered as it should be. You'll see there's a category for the column category for what you request from CTEDD and a separate category for what you'd be providing in match. It's broken out by pretty intuitive categories: faculty salary, student salaries, tuition, expendable items, and other direct costs. As I said, most of the cells have formulas pre-populated into them, so if you are able to stick with that, it should process through pretty quickly. But if you have any issues with it, we'd be happy to help you with it, or your Office of Grants and Contracts, which before a proposal is finalized, you must work with your Office of Grants and Contracts to make sure the dollar amounts are allowable and allocable and that everything matches as it should. We also wanted to provide examples of the match letters or stakeholder involvement letters. We, of course, we trust that you have strong ties to your community, but it's always good to have documented ties, particularly for financial commitments. If you're proposing match from your department, from your college, we need a signed letter from your unit supervisor, a department chair, or dean The dollar values mentioned in your budget must match the dollar values on the letter. For example, if your budget says $10,000 in match will be provided, the letter needs to also match that dollar amount. Otherwise, the proposal can't be processed or finalized. The dollar values must match. The letter also needs to have the PI's information, the project information, and a signature. Pretty straightforward templates here. Moving a bit into funding priorities. When we choose to award projects, we look for specific factors. We like to see projects that involve junior and or untenured faculty members, tenure track individuals who are, at the starting point of their career, who really have some fresh ideas but just need a little bit of support to turn the ideas into, innovative tech transfer ready projects. We're happy to help with that. We also, again, we really like to prioritize student involvement and training. It's very important to us. It's important to the USDOT, and we like to see that in budgets and proposals. We also like projects that are interdisciplinary, that involve external collaboration or collaboration across campuses, across units. We think it makes for richer and better, projects all around. The technology readiness levels that Dr. Clements mentioned earlier, we like it to have at least a level 3 of technology readiness. Above a 3, for example, as far as a level 5 or level 6, may receive higher funding. Certainly projects that are ready to sort of hit the ground running and generate tangible items that can inform policy and practice get a higher priority in the decision-making process. And also, we like to see projects that involve members of underrepresented populations. Transportation affects everybody in different ways. We like to see project teams that incorporate diverse views and diverse fields of expertise. Another list, I promise I won't read all 13 items, but we do have, first we have our internal criteria, which is after we receive a proposal, we evaluate it based on the following set points. We want to know if it fits our objectives, our focus areas. Is it a transportation project? And what kind of transportation project is it? We are specifically focused on equity, decision-making, financial issues. So it's important that it touches on what it is we actually do here. We want to be sure the project supports and mentors students. We want to make sure that it also supports tenure track faculty members, that your project is committed to stakeholder involvement throughout the process from start to finish. Is the research relevant nationally? We want to make sure that these projects are long-term contributions to the literature, that it actually moves the conversation, makes a genuine contribution to a broader conversation. Does the project support equity and diversity? And finally, the technology transfer readiness. Is the project viable for technology transfer? Does it propose and have a plan for realistic and useful long-range technology transfer? And finally, the last little bit, if you've been a previous PI with us before, we do consider your past performance. For example, on-time reporting, keeping up with the paperwork, just to sort of make sure that it's all well-rounded. But many of you we've worked with before, so you've surely seen that part before, but we do take that into consideration as well. But it's a holistic picture for the strength of proposals internally. And then when we send it externally to peer reviewers, they generally look at broader areas. Some of them are similar. They also check for focus area and scope to make sure that it's within what it is we do. They examine your methodology, the resources committed, innovation and intellectual merit, and impacts, which are very important to us, our stakeholders, the DOT, to make sure that your project will make a contribution, will have lasting impacts. So again, these items, they're in the RFP, they're available on our website. We're happy to talk about them, but we just want to make sure that these projects, as we evaluate them, that they fit with what we do and what we want to do over the next year or two. The important dates to go over, which they were in the announcement email, of course. The most important date is the first one, October 18th, 2019. So that's when the proposals and the budget submissions are due to c-tedd@uta.edu. Those must be submitted by your Office of Grants and Contracts. Please don't send them directly to us. It's a UTC policy. It must go through your university's proper channels to make sure that the budgets are checked and appropriately verified. We will be reviewing the proposals really as soon as we get them. In October, we'll review them. There be feedback given if necessary, if we have follow-up questions. Moving into December, we will do the award process. We'll announce the projects that we plan to start. We'll help you fill out your award documents, get the grant paperwork processed, and also your tech transfer plans, which in the proposal, they should be a strong tech transfer element already, so hopefully that part won't take too long. But the documents are planning to be finalized in December so that we can get you started at the start of the spring semester, January of 2020. That package that's due on October 18th needs to include the proposal document, which again, shouldn't exceed 20 pages in length. And an important part of that is the tech transfer plan, which is section 8 of the RFP. Again, please be detailed on that. It really helps us in the decision-making process and can help sell your project to reviewers. The proposed budget must be included. It must be reviewed by your institution. The numbers must match and have been verified. We'll need signed commitment letters and stakeholder commitment letters. If the package is missing these items, we can't properly process it and we can't make a decision on it. So if we don't receive those items by the 18th, we won't be able to consider your application. So again, we don't accept incomplete packages after the deadline or late proposals. We have a very tight structure for peer review process, so it's very important that we stick to that deadline. And the package has to include the budget justifications and letters. That's a very important part, as I mentioned previously, but please make sure everything's there. If you're missing something, please give yourself enough time to send it to us on time before the deadline. And again, this bears repeating, the packages must be submitted by your Office of Grants and Contracts, or however it may be named at your campus, of your university, and that includes UTA PIs. Please don't send them directly to us. They must go through that office, and they will know what to do with it. So now we'd like to move into the questions period, and for this, maybe we could start with the frequently asked questions. And for those, I could hand this over to our director, Dr. Shima Hamidi, and our associate director, Dr. Jay Rosenberger, who could cover some of first the frequently asked questions, and then we'd like to open it up to direct questions that you could type in via the text messenger.
Great, thank you, James, for the great presentation. I'm Shima Hamidi, Director of CTEDD, and I'm here with Dr. Jay Rosenberger. We are happy to answer the questions you might have about the RFP, the budget, the documents, required documents for the submission package, anything. While we are going through these frequent questions, feel free to type your questions on the menu, the box items, I think is on, yes, on the webinar page, and we will go through them one by one, and we'll make sure to respond to all of them during this webinar session. Okay, so these are the questions that we've been receiving every year and in almost every round of RFP, and so we thought to just go through them to make sure you guys know the updates on them and how to increase your chance of submission. Can we focus our proposal on technology transfer if we already have a technology in place? So the answer is even though the technology transfer is important, we would like to see that your project is filling a gap, in your field and is contributing to the advancement of knowledge as well. So we would like to see proposals that have both tech transfer and, basically the intellectual contribution to your field. And this is not an RFP for purely tech transfer or technology in place projects. How far ahead can we phase out our research? Number of years. If we plan for a multi-phase project, what does CTEDD consider necessary for a first year or first phase to be complete? The projects can be multi-phase. And Jay, please feel free to jump in whenever you would like. They can be multi-phase. However, there is no guarantee that the projects for future phases are awarded. This is just for this year of RFP. We receive funding every year from USDOT and will be able to award those funds on an annual basis to our PIs. But if the reviewers find great aspects and advancement in the field in your projects that is phased out, then that's a possibility for phase 2 to be funded in our next RFP next round. But the fact that you show us now that you've thought about the whole project from A to Z from now, it helps us to understand that you are advanced enough to be considered for a multi-year project. So the short answer is yes, we accept multi-phase projects and we would like to see them. At this point, we are able to only fund year 1 with the possibility to award future phases as well. Can we have non-tenured faculty as PIs, or is it necessary to have a more experienced faculty member as PI and for the postdoc untenured faculty to be as a co-PI?
So, yes, this is Jay. Yeah, so there are I guess we'll move on to the next question here, a frequently asked question. Are proposals considered from other areas of transportation research, such as econometrics, vehicle safety, emissions, etc.?
I would say only have connected one of our focus areas in the center. Focus area 1 through 6. So if you look at I think it's our focus area number 3, if I'm not mistaken, is economic competitiveness. So that is literally the economic aspects and economic benefits of transportation. That's a bridge between business planning and transportation, yes. But please make sure to highlight the fact that this is a transportation RFP, this is a transportation center, this is a transportation proposal with the connection to other fields as multidisciplinary projects that we would like to receive. What kind of budget items are non-allowable? Can we include travel for technology transfer for our research budget, or would that be a separate budget phase? This is a really good question. There are certain items that are non-allowable, and then there are certain items that we discourage in your budget. So the non-allowable items, equipments are, especially if they go over $5,000, are non-allowable unless they are absolutely necessary for this project, which you will need to provide strong justifications for that. Travel only if it is related to your data collection or for the projects, not for the conferences. The procedure of conference travel is a separate procedure and is not part of this. The in terms of matching funds, the matching funds only can come from non-federal sources. Federal sources cannot be used as a matching funds for these proposals because it is a federally funded. Usually items like, you know, food and events or, you know, reception and items of this nature that are kind of in a gray area to be justified as a necessary items for you know, for the projects or for the center or for proposal. Those are we encourage you not to include in your proposals. In terms of what we discourage, I just want to mention that we really would like, and USDOT really would like to see most of this money is going through student education and training. So we've seen in the past the proposals that have really a tiny you know, budget line for students, and most of the budget are going to faculty salaries or summer salaries. This is these are something we don't discourage. We don't encourage. We don't like to see these trends. We would like to see more support for the students as much as possible, and those proposals will be given higher priority.
So the third point they're doing here, to go again on the third bullet point.
They can't hear you?
They couldn't hear it. So they want
Oh, which one? The
third one.
oh, non-tenured faculty as PI. Oh.
This was, I think, me. So the postdocs as well as non-tenure track faculty can be PIs on proposals. Yes.
Maybe Samir.
Yeah. So we have a question from. Yeah, I have my mic from over here, so you can hear, and they will also hear the questions I would be speaking out. Then you can answer.
Okay, we are hearing the feedback loop.
Okay.
That's okay. Just read it to us. We'll read it again.
Okay, so the question Mr. Najati asked is, do you require cash matching funds or in kind would be enough?
Cash matching is not required, but is encouraged. If you can provide cash match, it shows that you've been able to work with your stakeholders in a way that they are supporting provide financial support for the proposal, and that's certainly a positive aspects for the review and, you know, for the external evaluation, and those will be given priority. So not requirement, but we encourage a cash match if possible.
The next question is, do you allow collaboration with foreign universities or institutions?
No, I think since this is a federal grant, no financial exchange could be done between us and a foreign national, national university or, an entity. There is not an option to have a financial exchange, meaning that having them on our budget or having a match from them or vice versa. But as long as it's a non-financial collaboration, there is no problem with that.
We don't have any questions for now. All the participants are free to post any questions if they want in their QA session, or if it's not available, they can send us through a chat.
I just want to mention one thing else. Another thing that is we would like to see in your proposals, if possible, is multidisciplinary and multi-campus proposals. We would like PIs and researchers across disciplines and across universities to work together. And that's really where the innovation comes. And so in the past, we had, many proposals where PIs from 2 different universities have been working together, or from disciplines that usually don't come together, but we've seen proposals and those have been given higher priority. So we encourage you to work with PIs from other departments, colleges, and universities, and that will help to come up with a stronger proposal.
Okay, so then we have question. Do you have your presentation slides available to us?
Yes, we will share the presentation slides in the with the listserv, and I believe this session is also recorded. If any of you would like to have a copy of that, please email Dr. James Wood and he will share it with you.
So we don't have any questions further. We will be still on. Yeah, we have a question. Regarding T2 transfer, especially on conference presentations, we focus on the completion of the project rather than the final product being represented at conference. So sometimes in the performance measure documentation that we submit, different progress report. We can't manage conference. What do you suggest in that case? We can present the final product at conference later.
Thank you for the question. This is Eileen. So what I would mention here is in regards to conference presentations, when we're talking about technology transfer, we're really looking at results that go above and beyond a conference presentation. We're looking at things where there is a stakeholder in the community, whether it be a government agency or an industry who's interested in the technology that you're developing and wants to be able to bring that on into their own organization and adopt it and implement it. So if there's a conference presentation, while that's fantastic and that helps support the outcomes from the projects, we need something more when it comes to impact. And so we're looking at things that are going beyond the conference presentation. If there's a policy document that's been developed, has that been turned over to one of your stakeholder partners? Have they been able to bring that into their organization? And then what have they been able to do with it? Have they been able to actually implement the policy that you have suggested, as an example? So while conference presentations are fantastic and a part of the research process, for technology transfer, we're looking at things that are in addition and beyond the conference presentation.
Thank you, Eileen. I just want to mention one thing, thanks to Jay for pointing that out. The question about collaborations with foreign consultants and nationalities, we looked at the US DOT documents and it seems it requires special approval from US DOT, which could happen. It's not like it's impossible, but we, that needs to be done in coordination with us. You can email Dr. James Wood and we can help you to communicate that with US DOTs if needed. However, this is not really what this grant is about. It's supposed to be about the US and the issues of transportation in the US.
Okay, so the next question is, for multi-campus, will each campus has a PI or there will be one PI in the proposal and others will be co-PI?
There will be one PI for each campus. And their budget, even for each campus, the budget will be processed through UTA. So it's not like one of them become the sub of others. All of them will be working with UTA's Office of Grants and Contracts on their budget, expenditure, invoices, financial, matters. So a PI from each university is the answer. Or more than one PI and could be co-PIs as well, but.
We are still waiting for the questions. Oh, we have new question. Collaboration should be from participating universities only.
Yes, collaborations as PIs, co-PIs, yes. only these people from these 5 universities. However, you can have non-PI collaborators who can be from private firms, consultations, other universities, local and state governments, anyone. So for the PI, co-PIs, only people from these 5 universities can serve as PI or co-PI, but it could go much beyond that when it comes to collaboration.
So we are still waiting on questions, and we will wait for more 3 to 5 minutes. Then we will close the webinar.
In the meantime, I just want to mention one point that your Office of Grants and Contracts will know, but just for you guys to know as well, and that's the IDC or indirect cost rate for your proposals. Most of the universities have different IDCs for different years. The IDC rate for 2016 is different from 2019. For this proposal, you will use the IDC rate of 2016 from your universities. For UTAPIs, that's 51.5%. And that's because that's the time that the center was awarded. So all of the proposals are using, no matter which year of the RFP, are using the same rate, and that's 2016 rate.
Okay, so the next question is there another session for Q&A?
No info session in a formal way, but feel free to ask your questions in email communications with James, Jay, or myself, and we'll be happy to help you.
Okay, so the another question, what is the weighting of criteria?
Great question. In each of those items that you see for the external review criteria, I believe we don't have a weighting. We just ask the reviewers to score them each individually and then provide one overall score for the entire proposal. And then we, based on what we get for each item and the overall score, and as well as the internal review process, we will make decisions. But they are weighted equally. I just want to mention just one more thing, that our criteria, evaluation criteria, and the evaluation form are all adopted based on the NSF evaluation form, just to make sure everything is standardized and we are following the same procedure as NSF. So that's we use that form and then edit it to make it a good fit for our center.
Yeah, so we don't have any questions now, so we'll be closing the webinar. Feel free to reach us on our email ID. The contact info is up over there. Feel free to reach, and you can the same info you can even find on the website as well. Thank you.